welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast.
How do? Welcome to a bootleg episode of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. Apologies that it's not the dulcet tones of Ian and Nikki that greet you this episode. They're all fine, but they've got rather a lot on their plates at the moment, and they will be back very soon. In the meantime, it's your old mutter-down pals in the hot seat. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a Scroll Lord and the chronicler of Silverbeard. Online I trade as This Man, This Pete. And as always, the mutterings will be supplied by
Mike Williams, comic fanboy, Scroll Lord stalker, and accidental podcast caretaker. You can find me online on Twitter at CthulhuPunk.
Have you got one of those brown overalls that they always used to wear in the background of Are You Being Served?
Yeah, I'll try and kit us out next time.
Yeah,
for the,
Arthur English.
For his little Skype, yeah.
Right. Festival news. Let's pretend we're being professional about this. Ian and Nikki always do such a good job of keeping our listeners informed about the main reason that we are doing this, which is to promote and get information out about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival. We can't be too specific about dates. We're just in terms of we're not quite sure when episodes are going out through the period at the moment. But please check festival socials and info at comicartfestival.com for the actual dates. At the moment, though, Leica Live continues with live virtual events, such as the online drawing challenges with Luke McGarry. There's been several of those that have happened online lately. Luke is streaming different drawing challenges on twitch.tv/Luke McGarry. I think there was one episode where he was drawing portraits of the people that were watching him, I think.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So
I haven't caught one yet. It's always been
No, I haven't myself. But, I mean, yeah, Twitch, it's what all the youngsters are doing, Mike.
I'm going to say, in these COVID times, I've kind of been converted. I've been watching a lot. And that's the problem. There is a lot of content, and there's a lot of comic artists out there. I mean, well, your friend and fellow Scroll Lord, Mark Hughes, a.k.a. Sock, was on Twitch. I've been watching quite a few of his, and they're surreal. There was the Dr. Zoidberg Lebowski that I watched. The Tanko one was very good, actually. And I think, is it The Art of Sock is his Twitch handle, isn't it?
Yes.
And then the other Saturday, I only at the last minute, as it flashed up as a reminder, suddenly caught Mark and you doing dual doodling on Twitch. That was for that was your local festival that had moved online, was it not?
Yeah, much like LICAF, the Swansea Comic and Gaming Con, or SCGC, moved online. They did change the date, much like lots of others, and they thought they might be able to do it, but they ended up going online a couple of Saturdays ago, and it went really well. It was I'd not done a live Twitch drawing before. Like you said, Mark's an old hand at it, and he's been online for a good few months now under the able tutelage of John Tucker, who's also a brilliant watch on Twitter. So that's twitch.tv/John Tucker Art. So he's been giving some good technical advice. And working through it with advice from friends. we both did a joint meet-up, so we're both sketching at home at the same time, but through a website called stream.am. If you tuned into the correct URL, you could watch us both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was quite. You can actually combine two Twitch streams onto one screen. A few teething problems, but I think it went all right in the end. Yeah, we had Russell Mark Olsen and Gustavo Vargas popping in as well. And I deliberately, because it was my first time, chose monsters just to give me an extra bit of comfort zone. So yeah, we had some good suggestions. Started off with a monkey.
People were suggesting in the comments section on the side, weren't they? I kind of joined in the background and didn't say anything for a while, and then it was just kind of weird timing because you had quite a lot of viewers, and then you both kind of finished and needed some ideas.
Yeah.
Sock noticed I was on and then pressured me into giving some ideas quickly. So I kind of just said some random things. And you both started drawing sketches for me. And then my internet went. So I actually missed about half of what was drawn for me. But thanks for sending me the shots after. It was it Goblin Skater Punk that Sock did for me? And you got the Pirate Minotaur. I loved it. And it's just brilliant watching you guys actually just draw from scratch. It's really good.
It was great fun, I have to say. To do it that way is much better than behind a table to a certain extent, because there's a bit more pressure when you have to. It's much like a conversation, really. When you enter into, a kind of sketch challenge, almost the way it is, once Mark's finished or getting close to it, I feel I have to. You feel there's a need to kind of keep the momentum going. So it's like, right, that one's down. What's next? I suppose it doesn't really have to be that. You can draw at your own rate. But I enjoyed trying to keep up with him. He's so fast. He's so confident. He's so good that I really enjoyed trying to just lose that kind of self-inspection that you can give yourself sometimes with drawings. Yeah. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. We got through a round of, what was the first? Cyberpunk Werewolf that we started with for Mark.
Yeah. And
then I did one of the con organisers, Adam Wilmot, as a monkey, because you always have to start with a monkey.
You have to get a monkey somewhere.
I don't quite know who Duke Gorgon is. I still can't remember. That was one of Gustavo's inventions. I think it's a Japanese cartoon I've not watched. I don't know. Luckily, Mark got that one. And then I did Gilman, which was a suggestion of Nancy, which I relished. I do like a bit.
I missed who was suggesting that. Right, okay.
Yeah, well, that was not through the chat box. That was more through Nancy happened to be walking through the room at the time, and me not understanding who most of Gustavo's references were. So Nancy just went, Gilman. Like, yeah. So you can watch both actually on Twitch TV. So the Art of Sock, you can see Mark drawing his. The videos stay up there, I think, for about a month, but we'll download them and hopefully put them on.
This is the problem I have with Twitch, because you start following and then you realise you've now got a backlog of things to watch. Because the Luke McGarry ones, actually, I haven't looked, but I'm assuming that they must be saved. If they're on Twitch, they'll be on his Twitch, won't they?
Yeah, you've got different saving levels according to what your sort of status is. So you can keep them up, I think, for a month or longer if you've got more followers.
I should imagine Luke's probably top tier on Twitch, isn't he?
So you can pop in and have a look at Luke's and mine. I'm This Man, This Pete, surprise, surprise, and Mark is the Art of Sock. But yeah, it was great fun. I would not have produced 4 drawings in a Saturday afternoon if it was just me. Self-examining table in a convention. That's not good enough. But putting a little bit of a dynamite up your bum and just getting on with it. It was great fun. Other things that we've noticed on the Leica feed?
Well, there's a bit of a strange reference that's just come out. Again, follow on Twitter. They're doing some filming for some kind of event.
Yeah.
But they're being hush-hush about it. But that's Stephen Appleby, who, well, I'm trying to think what all the different events Steve's done. He's kind of a regular, isn't he?
He did one of the opening events last year, didn't he? Was it Marvel versus Dixon?
Yes, he was one of the arguers. Yes. And Steve's with Brian and Mary Talbot, and for some reason on Coniston Water, talking about a shared obsession about swallows and Amazons. So nice and local, but so yeah, intrigued as to what that's all about. And one thing that has been advertised a bit is the Big Comics pub quiz.
Oh,
it's on Sunday the 11th. Now, that does sound quite. Should we do a podcast team? That's the question.
Do a podcast team. The trouble is, do I get kicked out of the Scroll Lords by being on the podcast team? That's my problem. I'm going to have to pull Clone Pete out the cupboard and be on both teams. I don't know what I'm going to do, but well, I was on the podcast before I was the Scroll Lords, so as far as I'm concerned, it's going to kick off, but I might have to be on the podcast.
You see, I think Tom might have a similar dilemma.
Of course, yeah.
Because our podcast compadre Tom is new to our podcast, but not to his podcast that's been going a lot longer. Yeah. And there may well be a bit of a pull from them to get a team together as well. So yeah, we'll have to try and fix something out.
Well, we don't know how many team members you're allowed.
That's true.
That's going to change stuff. If you're only allowed 4 people, that's going to.
My understanding is you can actually be solo as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how they're going to run this yet. Details are scant, I think, at this time.
It's probably going to be solo, isn't it? Let's face it. It would make it a lot easier just to have people individually, wouldn't it?
Oh no, it does say teams, and then it says as an exception, sort of, and solo as well. So yeah.
Okay. No, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I can't wait. Yeah, and slightly infuriating. We should be by the side of Coniston Water ourselves, usually, or certainly expecting to be there in a week or two. If it was a normal year, but the new normal means we are at home putting our feet into a bucket of water instead and pretending we are on Coniston Lake. Check the festival socials and info at comicartfestival.com for more news as it breaks. We will endeavour to take the place of Ian and Nikki and keep you up to date on any other info that we just managed to notice.
I'll try and be a bit more professional and prepared for it in future.
Although, Kickstarter plugs. We've got content for this, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
We've definitely got content. We keep making excuses about the dates, but my Kickstarter with the Scroll Lords Scroll Magazine ends its campaign on Wednesday, the 19th of August. If this shambolic bootleg episode manages to get out before then do take a look at the campaign. It's now up to 108 pages, and as well as myself and Mark Hughes and Russell Mark Olsen and Martin Simpson and Nick Prolix and Gustavo Vargas, it now includes pages from Mark Stafford, Matt Simmons, Rosie Packwood, Jessica Lucas, Phil Elliott, John Reppion.
Oh, yes.
John Reppion.
Always a bad idea to
Short
start
story by John Reppion.
You're supposed to say that on this, mate.
I'm going to forget
somebody. No, somebody's got to be forgotten.
I'm going to be in such trouble. There's always one you forget. A short story by John Reppion, illustrated by Lucy Sullivan, and partly the reason why, if you do catch the odd slur in my delivery today, we just had a celebratory Scrawlord's online Zoom drink to celebrate the stretch goal being broken of £5,000, which means we get to have 2 pages of Simone Darmany artwork. Spider King, masterful cartoonist. He's done The Goon. I think he's done She-Hulk. Absolutely love his stuff. And Russell's written a lovely, lovely little short 2-page script, and it's going to happen. So we were chuffed to bits that was our final set stretch goal. I think we might try and pull some ideas out of the bag for the last few days, but
it's always good when the Kickstarter achieves everything it wanted to, and all the stretch goals, and that's great.
Totally. It was all on the flat plan, and we could see them going, and I was there totting it up, saying, right, okay, how much money between the 6 of us do we need to put in to make this happen if it gets close enough? But other Kickstarter plugs?
Yeah, there's another one that I've been looking at, and that's Saxon's Secondhand Books, which looks crazy good. Written by Ash Dedden and art by Gustavo Vargas. Sorry to keep bringing in your fellow artists in, but it just looks really interesting. There's it's kind of a 1870s London secondhand bookshop run by Donald Arthur Saxon, who doesn't really do a lot of selling as such, but concentrates on his sideline on solving supernatural mysteries. And that's on Kickstarter right now. Yeah,
that looks ace. And Alan Henderson returns with another Penned Gwyn collection, the Penned Gwyn Coincidence. The A5 landscape book is 100 pages of black and white penguin humour, featuring the puns, parodies, dad jokes, and cringing gags you've come to expect from Alan's penguin crew. In this outing, the penguins stretch their legs with sport, meet some universal monsters, as well as dealing with schooling and learning. And depending on how you count it, this is the 13th Penned Gwyn book. I think there's some jiggery-pokery with the figures. I think it's 15th if you count the treasury figures. But Alan is on his way to the 2000th daily strip of Penned Gwyn.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So that is, I think you've searched Penned Gwyn Coincidence on Kickstarter. Right, on to the second quarterfinal of the Comics Genre World Cup. And today we have a brilliant guest to help us keep the lights on in this bootleg episode. He's a prose writer, an events rep, a reviewer, a comic writer, an awesome comics podcast co-host, one of the busiest guys in comics, and the person who should really be doing the Comics Genre World Cup. It's the legendary Tony Esmond. Hey, Tony.
Don't say that, because you're pretending that I know something about football. It's like being reverse bullied by you two. I know nothing about football. I'm going to claim I know less than you do, Mike, because I've heard you pretend to talk about it.
Yeah, I think Mike is
Thank you. No, it's great to be here. Thanks, guys. I love the show. I'm really enjoying this. I know Ian rags on you a bit, but it does make me laugh.
I don't know if we were the final straw in him making Ian and Nikki take their break, because he's just had this ridiculous podcast hosting bill for the amount of flipping mutter downs that we've been soaking up his gigabytes.
Good. Really good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, because I know you've got an exhaustive knowledge of all things comics, and as a writer, I really want to get your viewpoint on the subject of genres. But as you know, as you've listened previously, to pad out the material that we managed to work with each couple of hours, we've introduced the Isolation Diary.
I feel like I'm here to counsel you both. I feel a bit like that.
Yeah. What are you really talking about?
How do you feel
about comics? Yeah. So yeah, we normally, as we mentioned in the chat before this bit, really the therapy session that is Isolation Diaries. So how's lockdown been for you?
It's been, do you know what? All right. I quite like my own company. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. I have to be honest. Having retired a year and a half ago and being a pensioner, I decided to take up full-time employment again, and I've just been non-stop. It's just been really busy. So the only difference is I can never tell where a week begins and a week ends. You know, somebody will ring you and you feel like you've only spoke to them yesterday and it was actually like a month ago or something. You know, it's like that. But and that, it's been all right. You know, I'm not worried about it. I've quite enjoyed it, to be fair. And I've read a load of comics.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I've taken to working out what day of the week it is, of whether that's the day that the alcohol gets delivered or not.
Was that like every other day?
Tuesday? Yeah. Oh, it's a Tuesday! Yay!
I like the way you two guys describe what you're drinking, because I don't drink much anymore. But we had a drink and draw the other day, and I drank for the first time. I was quite proud of myself. I actually managed to sort of decently keep up. Yeah, but yeah, I'm mostly coffee these days.
Oh, it's the one thing that is, yeah, something that me and the missus now are constantly like, oh, you know, we should cut back, you know. But when you're living with two teenagers in lockdown, it's all that's keeping us going some days.
You're lucky you're not on the Class A's.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go out to the pub anymore. I found that I've got into a rotation system with my alcohol order to make sure that I have definitely 1 week's worth of alcohol between orders plus emergency 3 days.
Yeah.
And it's working perfectly now. I've got an entire cupboard full of beers. And as soon as it gets to about halfway down, the restock occurs. Yeah, it's just working like a dream now.
It's like a machine. Yeah, perfect.
I like to hear the emergency measures as well. Yeah, it's like we have this emergency bottle of tonic in the back of the cupboard, usually covered with dust. But that one time that it really had to drag it out has saved our life.
I'm a light rum drinker, and there is a bottle of dark rum that is the last resort. But it's like treacle, this stuff, and that's right buried at the back. Yeah.
So how's it been for you, Mike?
Right, it's just exploded for me. I've been busy with work all the way throughout, but just projects with work at the moment. I'm doing late nights.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling to read comics, would you believe? Quarantine got delivered digitally. Still not read it. So I might put it to one side till I get the physical copy, actually. Sometimes I like to do that. So I was glad that came out.
Yes, I haven't downloaded. I got sent the proof, but I haven't actually downloaded the Kickstarter one yet. But I was chuffed that I mean it's nice when you actually see your page in the same book as nice Gary Erskine, and with a Shaky Kane with a Derek Robertson cover. And a Sean Phillips bonus page. It's kind of like,
I think, is it 2 pages in? There's a double page spread, and it's got all of you as artists on there. And it must be amazing to share that with certain people on there.
So good.
But I had a quick spin through on the digital as well, and even going at like full scroll, I could recognise whose pages for certain artists just at high speed because they're so distinctive.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to reading that, but I think I might wait, like I said, till the physical copy comes through. It's got to be shortly, isn't it?
Yeah. I think John did a really good job of choosing who went where, and I think he deliberately did choose some artists slightly against type to do some of the like monster pages and slightly horror pages rather than just going for the full one.
Just to see what they do, yeah.
I love Shaky Kane. Love him.
Yeah, isn't he?
Love him. We've just hooked him for a cover, so we're quite pleased.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah.
We
interviewed him years ago on the Awesome Pod, and he was brilliant. And he's a little bit, you know what I mean? I think he's had his moments in his life. I think there's been a few intoxicants pass under the bridge there. But I went and saw him at a convention, like literally the week after, and asked him what he thought of the podcast and did he enjoy himself. And he seemed to think that I'd followed him around the supermarket recording it. And I don't know why he thought that.
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, man. Yeah, I remember the Amen from Deadline was one of my favourite bits in Deadline. I thought it was superb. I made one of the few sort of people. I don't do Facebook, but when I did start out, Shaky Kane was on there, and so I became Facebook friends. And then one day, I got a birthday card from Shaky Kane. And
wow.
I thanked him profusely. Yeah, turned out it was just one of those apps that use some sort of backdoor friend connection to try and make you join it, or it was the early, it was about 8 years. He hadn't sent me a birthday card. I thanked him profusely, and he was fine about it. But yeah,
in his head, he probably thinks he has done now. That was nice.
That's fine. I mean, in my mind, he still has. But yeah, for 10 minutes, I believed I got a birthday card from Shaky Kane.
Because he was telling me how he draws different on different bits of paper and joins it in together, and he's never happy with it, and he's always throwing part of the drawing away. And I was desperately trying to get out of him his address so I could just bin dive, and find all.
Imagine, that'd be outstanding. Because he did that thing with Richard Starkings as well. Was it The Beef? Some great graphics on that.
Yeah. Really. 1,000 Yard Stare. That was, I think, the last thing I saw from him. I mean, he did The Last Driver as well, which actually I've written down for tonight, but which is quite good.
Yeah, was it Bulletproof Coffin?
Yes, well? That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that. I loved all. Yeah, it's right up my street, that one. Yeah. Well, I mean, same with Mike. To be honest with me, I just ended up with another deadline crunch.
Oh no.
I work for a publisher that ends up with there's a lot of seasonal work. So there's certain times of the year they start to really insist that their Christmas stuff has got to get done, otherwise it's not going to get produced and shipped and in stores and stuff. So I think we've just been through Halloween, so I'm in the kind of I'm in Christmas land at the moment. So it's
Christ,
it's depressing.
Must be like that weird bloke they always have on telly who says, I celebrate Christmas every day, and he's like this freak. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
He's still got his Christmas tree up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. But yeah, so it's I mean, it's just full on at the moment. But
I mean, every day's Halloween, every day's Valentine's Day for you anyway, isn't it, Pete? Is it?
Oh, totally. Me and the missus loved up. Walks every day, holding hands, birds chirping. Actually, they fly around us in a heart shape. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, you're still not going to get on the good side of her. Still not working.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
And I noticed that Pete's been very polite in his isolation diary, not to mention that the Scroll Lords Kickstarter went live.
Yes, and it's
smashed last episode.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know it's a short one as well. I think we're only up for 18 days. I think
you've only got like 13 days left or something. I think I looked on my phone.
I think so.
Smashing stretch goals already though.
Yeah, I mean the first day funded in just under a day, I think. So, but yeah, the first one I think we did by the weekend. So yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I just feel like a hanger on, quite frankly, with the people that are involved.
I actually think it's a really good time for Kickstarters. I think everything seems to be doing really well on Kickstarter. I think people missed their comics, I
think so. And I think, I was talking to Simon in the comic shop, and he was saying, although there's been a big contraction in a lot of areas, obviously pubs and restaurants, for some people, they've got, they might be in jobs that are expanding or busy or just as busy, but they haven't got the same outlet for their money that they would have. They haven't got the costs.
Commuting money. Yeah.
Petrol money, commuting money, sandwich money, beer money. It's kind of just, even if you can go out for a beer, you're not going out perhaps at the same amount of time. So, it's a real weird boom and bust for some people. Obviously, for some people it's terrible and, has been really awful and contractive. And then for other people, they've got, more money than they usually have because they're not spending.
I feel bad for the drug dealers. I don't know how it's affected their business.
Yeah.
It's not that passing trade anymore, is there?
No, but...
I walked over a bridge in Camden just for Christmas and some urchin said to me, "Do you want to powder your nose?" I went, "Mate, really? I'm 52 years old." And he literally went, "Oh, I'm really sorry, mate." And he walked off.
Bless him. It's the British Wire.
Yeah, don't believe that knife crime in London nonsense. It's not true.
Well, yeah, right, Mike. Do you want to do the roundup of?
Yeah, right. What are we here for?
World Cup. You're in charge of the structure.
He's big. Yeah, he's like the Brian Clough of your podcast.
He's the Gary Lineker
I know who those people are. I have heard of those people. Okay.
Yeah, I know them from the crisp adverts, of course.
Right, okay. This is a quarter-final, and it's the second quarter-final. So these were the winners from the group C.
You're making it up. I don't believe you.
B.
Yes,
Mate.
B. Okay.
Makes me sound better now, correct?
Sorry, Group B. So we had in the groups we had Post Apocalypse versus TV adaptations, which Post Apocalypse won.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And then we had horror versus reality, and it was a lot close. This is quite a close one actually, but horror did actually win out in the end. So that means that this quarterfinal is Post Apocalypse versus horror genre. And just a recap of the top fives that were used in the original match. Post Apocalypse at number 5 was Pride of Baghdad. At number 4 was Wasteland. 3 was Mad Max Fury Road. 2 was Transpersonage or Snowpiercer. And number 1 was Judge Dredd. Horror. Number 5 was Twisted Dark series. 4 was Gideon Falls. 3 was the excellent Fable. 2 At the Mountains of Madness, and number 1 was From Hell.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty good going. Yeah, you trounced me on that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, and I won both matches, didn't I? That was
Got a real battering. Yeah, for some reason, why I chose to come up with actual TV programs rather than comics.
yeah.
That was lockdown madness right there. That's what that was.
There's some really good TV comic adaptations as well. Probably not. I did actually try and do little Mike's mutterings about this before, but you do run out quite quickly. There's not as many as you think that's done right, but no, I enjoy doing the TV, the true TV aspect of it, of comics going into TV.
Chuck Norris Karate Commandos? Are you joking? It's brilliant.
You can do the rules now.
Yes. Okay, we are going to go through our guest selection of his picks for Post-Apocalypse and his picks for horror. And then we're going to have a little vote between ourselves, but this means absolutely nothing because the voting is purely in your hands. We'll put a poll up on Twitter, and we'll also have a poll up on the Comic Art Festival podcast site.
Yeah, I think that's just a link to the Twitter poll.
So,
yeah, I looked into that.
Not that technical then. Okay.
Yeah, I did look into. I spent about 15 minutes looking up free poll apps to include on the word. You know, I was googling WordPress poll apps, and then I noticed that Ian had just added a link to the Twitter poll. Much easier.
That does remind me, we haven't actually covered what the results of the previous quarter-final was. Have you got the stats there?
Oh, yeah.
Have you looked?
I haven't. I haven't actually looked what the latest score was.
Tony, this is terrible. It doesn't happen on the awesome podcast like this, does
no,
it?
It's
much worse.
It's terrible. Yeah.
You've been on there, you know.
Yeah.
So, the previous quarter-final was romance versus crime.
Yeah.
You got the stats yet?
Me?
Yeah.
I'll turn my computer off.
Okay, I'm going to look quickly. We might have to cover this earlier on in the programme.
Well, in that case, the listener, the treasured mindless one, has probably already knows the results.
I know the winner. I was just wondering what the overall percentage was, because they are going to go through to the semi-finals, and it was crime wins at 59%.
Ooh, close than I thought.
Romance 41%, and I'm really glad about that, because I was reading the comments and stuff, and I just thought it was going to be an absolute cakewalk for crime, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
That's really nice. Brilliant.
So does that mean whoever wins tonight is going to be against Prime.
Yeah,
I think I believe it's called the semi-final.
Yeah,
that will be a semi-final.
I'm English, so I wouldn't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Welsh. I don't think I even know what quarterfinals are.
Right. Okay. So that's the rules of the Genre World Cup. So, but just before we move into the actual horror versus post-apocalyptic discussion, as we've got Tony on, I did want to get your views on genre as a whole. So, as a writer, how does it fit into your writing process? So do you have a story idea?
Yeah, it's not.
And then decide what genre, or do you suddenly wake up one day and decide to write a Western?
I think it's a bit of both, really. Sometimes I am taken with the genre. So, and like, funny enough, you say Western. I really want to write a Western because I read a load earlier this year, Yeah. So kind of, sometimes it does take me like that, but I kind of have to sort of allow it to mooch about a bit in my head before I write it down. But for the recent thing, so the Hurt comic is post-apocalyptic in the widest sense of the word. It's just a sort of useful canvas to write my nonsense on, I suppose. I mean, if it was set in Camden, I couldn't write half of what I'm writing, I suppose. So we couldn't be having sex with robotic unicorns. That wouldn't be possible. Well, it might be in Camden. I haven't been there recently.
Yeah, you just got to pay more for it.
Yeah. So I think I've said this before. I said this in our podcast recently. And most of what I write is just to make Adam laugh, because we have these like weekly meetings where he comes around the office. We pretend we've got Tribute Press HQ, but it's just my little office. And we come around and we just make each other laugh. And he says, "What are you going to write this week?" And I say something, and if he laughs, it gets included. But I think I am a little bit taken with the post-apocalyptic thing. I wrote a list of. I said, right, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write down as many as I can think for tonight, and then I'm going to pick out some favourites. And it's surprising what there is that I've read that is a post-apocalyptic, and it's not all horror. Which when I went into it, I thought these are all going to be horror, but they're not all horror. There's a couple of choices there. That's a long answer, isn't it? Sorry about
that. No, it's fine. I mean, I was going to think about post-apocalyptic in one way, I think, and what we discovered in this kind of in the journey that we've been on. That it's
do you know what? The way my Skype is set up, I've got you side by side, and the way the lighting is in both your rooms, it looks like you're in the same room. So in my head, when I walk the dog and I listen to you two talking, I imagine you're sitting next to each other on a couch.
I need to take a photo. I need to take a photo of you two because your bookshelves actually match up.
Oh, nice. Oh. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually in the supermarket.
Yeah. Sorry, mate, I interrupted you.
No, that I think post-apocalyptic is very similar to superhero as one of those genres that kind of includes. You can include anything in both of them, and they don't break.
Yeah.
So you can include, a robot unicorn in either genres, whereas if you do include it in somewhere else, then you've just popped the bubble of that make-believe setting.
Yeah, and it's a weird one, isn't it? So it's difficult to include a superhero in a fantasy story, but you can have one in a post-apocalyptic. You can have a romance. You can have a political story. You can have... Well, Dredd proves that. I know you talked about Dredd previously, but Dredd proves that over and over again, doesn't he? And people forget that's what it is. The rest of the earth is ruined, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose it's an element of usually the fact that a post-apocalypse is set in the future, and that future element gives you the chance to just say, well, it happened,
Yeah.
It was science. What did it, And I think there's an element of that in superhero comics. You've just got that same Get Out. Oh, it's like, super science.
Yeah, he's a mutant, so he can shoot rays out of his eyes. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but we kind of go for it, don't we? I think with Herc, I kind of decided when we came upon the post-apocalyptic thing. I think the thing you always have to have is why the Earth has been ruined. I think that's kind of the thing. Yeah. And when we lived in the atomic age, Planet of the Apes and all this sort of thing, it was always a nuclear war, wasn't it? It was the easy option. But I thought, well, let's go for the nuclear war because I'm a big fan of that as a sort of genre, whatever the movie is, from Mad Max through Bronx Warriors through, you name it. But from a movie point of view, but I decided that the world was ruined by hipsters. That was my new thing, right? And because everybody went and did anime voiceover degrees, then and nobody did nuclear physics. Nobody knew how to turn a nuclear thing on and off.
Yeah,
I say thing, look, because I'm a genius. But nobody knew how to turn one on and off. And when it went to explode, they were all busy growing their beards or something and wearing pointy shoes. And that's what ruined the earth. Hipsters ruined the earth, which working in London fields a lot so satisfied me.
That's pretty, well, I think you actually say on the first page, isn't it? It wasn't science, it was laziness.
Yes,
It's a brilliant line, a brilliant start to the whole comic. It sets the tone, and you do bring it back as well later on. I reread it them both for tonight, ready for you to come on. But you went, was it now the army poured into the desert with the same sense of urgency as a millennial looking for a flat white or a phone charger?
What do you mean I can't pay with Bitcoin? It's like that, isn't it? It's
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, so that kind of I can understand when you look at it that way of why post-apocalypse and superheroes are such a great canvas to start with. And I think sometimes with me, there are certain genres that I love reading, but I couldn't ever imagine myself sort of tackling, certainly from an art front, because just of the amount of work that sometimes, drawing cars and buildings and or like historical drama and research and stuff like that. Does that ever come into play with you as a writer, or is it easier because you can?
There is a freeing quality to it as a writer, I think. And it's I did a book called Cockney Kung Fu with your fellow Scrawl Lord, Mr. Prolix. And I was forever like Googling 1975 kebab shop, Old Kent Road and things like that, to get the right vibe for it and stuff, and what cars they were using. We researched police uniforms, getaway vans, kebab shops, and literally a kebab shop in the Old Kent Road is a front in a part of it. And I did enjoy that because it kind of is the area of London that I grew up in, but it is freer when you think you can just say, oh, right, they're in I don't know where they're going to be. Oh, they're up a mountain. It's like that. And they get attacked by, you don't have to be clever, which I think writing sort of convoluted and complicated thrillers would severely turn me off, because I write, as you draw, I write for pleasure. We're not, we're never going to be millionaires, are we? And I like just that freeing quality where, the most things I have to remember are people's names. Yeah.
I know what you mean. There's an element of writing or doing what you want to read, isn't there, for some creators who do it for pleasure rather than profit. I think most of the stuff that, me and the Scroll Lords are doing at the moment is based purely from an either experimental point of view. I know certainly there's lots of them that enjoy challenging themselves. And then, I'm challenging myself, but actually drawing a story without monsters in it this time. So that for me is the biggest challenge I've come across. Yeah. But it's a cross between what do I want to read, what do I want to absorb myself in to this project for quite some time. And that can mean you're willing to do some research, and invest yourself in a different time and setting, but it can also mean that you set it in a fantasy land so that you don't have to draw cars and buildings. Yeah,
exactly. And I do admire writers and artists who allow themselves to really experiment and take a flight of fancy. We had Brendan McCarthy on the show a few months ago, and his work is so amazing. So instinctual and so styled, and and even writers like Don McGregor and his Killraven, which we'll talk about in a minute, I'm sure, but his Killraven just blew my mind as a kid. It was just another level of theatre for me, and it just the imagination on the page with people like P. Craig Russell and these sort of people, just fucking beautiful, really amazing.
Yeah, totally. So are there any genres you've not written yet? That you mentioned a Western?
I'd love to write a Western. Yeah, I do love. I read a load of Ralph Myers' work, The Undertaker, and Rico Marini's stuff from what's it called again? Desert Star. I read a load of those Edge novels, New England Press novels from the 70s and 80s, The Edge, which was sort of violent blue cowboy novels. And I read a load of whenever I'm on holiday in Spain or Portugal, I buy the textbooks. They've got that in, and Kubert did some of them. I think it's much ignored. It's incredibly popular still in France. Westerns, we just don't really see it. It's more popular in France than it is in America.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I think I'd like to draw a Western. I said recently I want to draw a first-person narrative book. I've just been holding myself back from doing that. I really want to hear that in a monologue, which I think is something on its own. It's that noiry gumshoe thing going on, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
No, I'm probably not going to draw a romance comic. It never ends well, does it? What about you guys? Is there anything you'd like? Do you write, Michael? I don't know.
No, I'm 100% fanboy.
Yeah, you never fancied it, or it's not. It's easy being a writer, by the way. They get the artists to do the hard work. It's easy.
I kind of have similar artistic outlets. I write a lot of RPG stuff for tabletop role-playing games, and do a lot of painting of miniatures. But no, funnily enough, not actual comic writing. Although that is something I would like to try at some point.
Yeah, you should do, man. Yeah, it's fun.
Just change your barbarian character to a gorilla, and you got somebody who.
You kind of had an idea for a Silverbeard, so yeah.
Oh, that's good. There you go. Yeah, my idea of you two living in the same house is really rocking now.
Well, I mean, I don't know, genre. My stuff's usually governed by time. I'm terrible. Okay. I'm coming from a background of being a designer and illustrator. Everything that comes across my desk instantly gets chopped up and chunked into how long it's going to take. And do you know what I mean? And I think, with having Silverbeard and now Scroll magazine and various sort of smaller projects that come my way, I do like to generally be in charge of what I am going to draw, because I don't want to take on something that I know is going to take me a long time to research and perhaps, I think, just technically knuckle down to. So I do tend to cheat that way. Some of the sort of anthology stories I was asked to write, like to draw somebody else's script, and they'd always send it me, and I'd always read it going, oh no, it's going to take me ages. So I come up with a story. It's like setting a boxing ring or something like that. It's like, I can do that. It's quick and easy, and it's a nice exercise. But favorites, I'd love to do. I mean, part of the reason the Cat Food comics sort of characters I've got, they all have different genres really as a background, a little more pulpy. But I'd love to do a crime story. I'd love to do a sort of gumshoe story. I'd love to do eventually a kind of sci-fi story. But there's always the sort of techie side of that kind of worries me. I can't do robots very well. I don't know. It's not good fun, does it? It's like, I can't do robots.
So many working parts. I couldn't be bothered to draw them twice. You know what I mean? It's like that,
It's like all the stuff that Dan does on Vanguard, looks amazing. And it's all this technical wizardry, and it just glints in the sunlight. And it's like, I just can't. Whenever I do it, it just looks like, something from, the Beano or something. There was a character called Nuts and Bolts in Monster Comic. And I think that's what I see in my mind when I draw a robot. Just this kind of more comedy sort of black hole type.
There's place for that. Yeah.
Well, so let's move on to horror versus apocalypse then. Post-apocalypse.
Okay.
So, do you have a favourite out of those two?
Post-apocalypse, I'm going to choose, because I think that's the one you first mentioned to me. So, Mike's giving me like a thumbs up, like he's like happy now. I've been got on this. There's something going on. I'm suspicious now. Mike's got something planned.
No. It's just that post-apocalypse is my genre. The only reason it got actually included as a separate genre is because I argued enough.
Oh, okay.
The original genre is we actually based off IMDb. I think was where I got the original list from. But I really do think post-apocalypse is different from sci-fi or horror. There's too many differentiating things. So I'm glad to have another post-apoc fan. That's all.
Since we started, we have realised we've missed a couple, haven't we? We didn't have spies. We didn't have historical.
Yeah, historical would have been a good one, I think.
Viking Prince and such. But
you didn't have martial arts. You didn't have the martial arts, did you?
Didn't have no chop socky.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I ended up writing like 40 odd post-apocalyptic ones that just off the top of my head have got some association with it,
Yeah.
I'm not going to read them all out, don't worry.
So what is it about a post-apocalyptic story then that?
I don't know. I quite like the hopelessness. I quite like there's a doubling, isn't there? There's like there's two ways you could go. It's completely and utterly hopeless, and you see it in the eyes of these people. They've got nothing to live for. The sun's dying. There's zombies everywhere. They've all got a disease or whatever it's going to be. But also, you don't have to pay the mortgage anymore. It's quite nice, isn't it?
I was going to say, there's a sense of freedom, isn't there?
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Me and my son, whenever we're driving when he was a bit younger, when we're driving or on a train through the countryside, we'd spot a house and say, that'd be a good place to defend from zombies. And I'd get him to talk to me about why he thinks it would be, And I still do that now. I still I'd love to live there. Think if there's a zombie apocalypse. There's a little tower, there's a moat. It'd be brilliant.
There is a kind of Western element to it, isn't there? Really,
there really is. Yeah. Well, The Walking Dead's a Western.
New frontier. You against the world. It's you defending your little plot of land or making your way through an unknown sort of landscape. So there's that element.
Very primal, isn't it? It's your alpha or you die, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. Yeah.
I mean, that's why it fits really with horror so much. Really, the two go together. They are the most apt, really, verses that we've got for our time.
Yeah.
So, but there's definitely an element of horror usually in post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, yeah. In different scales. So something like The Walking Dead is basically a horror apocalyptic story, isn't it? There's a perfect balance, if not more horror.
Yeah.
But something like I was looking at The Last American by Wagner Grant and Mike McMahon.
Oh yeah.
And it's more of a sort of science fiction thing, isn't it? It's it's slightly different.
Yeah, is that Dark Horse? Sort of 90s?
I think it was Epic.
Oh, Epic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Really like that. I love McMahon, obviously.
Yeah, he's amazing, isn't he?
Another one which isn't in my top 5, but I really like is Winterworld by Chuck Dixon and Butch Guice. I think he did some of the. Have you seen that one?
Mike mentioned.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Right, of course you did, mate. Yeah, sorry, I forgot you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And that's so bleak, isn't it? So bleak.
It is. It's very similar to if anyone's either read Cormac McCarthy's The Road or watched the film. God. It's kind of that level of post-apocalypse, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, just so hopeless. I went and saw that movie. And I will never see it again because it's so affecting. It's an amazing movie, but I found it very affecting.
I haven't watched it again because my partner will not watch it again.
Yeah.
She suffered through it once, is how she puts it. So I hope that wasn't a date night you were on when you went to see that.
No. And I was on my own actually one afternoon, and I came out the cinema and it was snowing, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like, what is happening to the world? And I think. Stuff like Winterworld, and also there's a book called The Massive. Have you seen that by Brian Wood? Very similar as well. And that's they're traveling across the ocean on this ship, and you don't really know what's happened to the rest of the world. It's all a bit unclear, and everyone's a pirate, and everyone's at each other's throats, and there's that survival instinct thing going on, which I really like. That's very good. And Crossed is the same. I don't know if you guys have read Crossed, the Garth Ennis.
I have. I hope this doesn't affect your choices much. We have actually got zombie as a separate genre.
Oh, right.
But it's fine to do. But yeah, fine, include them anyway. But I always see Cross was a very interesting take on.
It's funny. Are they zombies?
Zombie, or was it more pandemic-y?
Yeah, it could be. It could be pandemic, isn't it? Yeah. Luckily, COVID hasn't caused us to cut off horses' genitals and beat people to death with them.
Yeah,
but it's been close. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Some things you've got to be thankful for, I guess. Yeah.
Another one I'm really big fan of. This is not my top 5, so that's what we're doing now, don't we? We're not. It's not top 5 yet, is it? Is that right?
Yeah,
just
however.
Chucks any number of recommendations in. Really, I think that's It doesn't matter how many, or if you've not got any or too many.
Okay. The other one is one I chatted to Pete Dorey about recently, and he reminded me of, and I hadn't read for 30 years, is Cobalt 60 by Von Bodie,
Right.
Which is just amazing.
Don't know this one.
It's crude, it's cartoony. There's an element to the end of the world to it, but it's humorous and nasty and druggy, and it's just the most incredible. He died far too young, Von Bodie, and it's just an incredible piece of work, just beautiful. And you can get collections of it, but half of it will be sketchbook pages and stuff like that. It's really incredible stuff.
I remember it's one of those books. I remember poring over it sort of and soaking in the visuals, but I can't remember a lot of or even if I read it, I think I just got so distracted by his artwork. It is just brilliant, and it just sucks you in and pulls you along. So I can remember staring at it, but I can't actually remember.
It seems to me a little bit almost the same aesthetic as stuff like Fritz the Cat, stuff like that. It's that undergroundy counterculture, alternative stuff. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, very much so.
Jeremiah, which is a BD book, Herman Huppen, and it's a sort of road buddy movie in a devastated world. It's just been released on Comixology. You could for a while get it in translated, but I think I've got some French versions of it, and that's just really amazing.
Brilliant.
It's classic painted artwork. Looks a bit like something like the Trigon Empire. It's got that sort of style art to it, Shaolin Cowboy.
Yeah.
There's kind of a zombie element to that one, so maybe.
Oh no, it kind of goes beyond that, doesn't it?
Does it?
Cowboy, yeah, I think so. Because it's just that's something about that kind of exploration of the world of the post-apocalypse, isn't it? I mean, that you just get this real sense of how vast this sort of whole place is, which is incredible considering how detailed Jeff Darrow's art is. You've got this sense of absolute sort of vastness, but with the absolute crazy detail that he puts into it. Amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say hard-boiled, but I don't think the world of hard-boiled has tipped over into a post-apocalyptic world. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between us and the post-apocalypse is this world of,
Yeah, it's almost the sort of tipping point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's sometimes what you want. Sometimes it's like we were always a little frustrated with Walking Dead. They'd announced when they announced Fear the Walking Dead, and it started off being an examination of the time, but then they just seem to jump past it a little too quickly. There is something quite fascinating about
I think it's always the best bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's the actual transformation into the apocalypse, and it gets missed a lot of the time. So many post-apocalypse stuff really is. It's like 15 years later, or even 100 years later, and and they did that with.
They did that with Crossed, actually. They went far too in the future for me, and it began to put me off a bit. The bit when it's like all happening and they're kind of their heads are working out what's gone on. And there's a great moment in Crossed. I actually think there's more story in the first 6 issues of Crossed by Garth Ennis than there are in the first 50 issues of The Walking Dead. There's a bit where they find some kids holed up and they kill them, and you're like, right, well, they're never going to survive. They're going to get eaten or whatever's going to happen with these cross creatures, and it's just this really strong moment. It gets a bad reputation for being just overtly very sexual, very violent and stuff like that, but there's a lot of thought goes into there's a lot of thinking, a lot of planning gone into that Cross series. I really do recommend it. I think people who hear about it think, oh no, I'm not going to read that because I've heard about it, but it's better than that.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but it's something I should have. Yeah, definitely.
There's a book called Sentient, which has come out from TKO by Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Hernandez Walter.
Yeah.
About a sort of spaceship and they're surviving Earth and going to another planet. The parents all get killed and the kids have to survive. That's an incredible book. Really, really amazing. Yeah. So Walter's the same guy who drew Vision. So if you can imagine that sort of style of artwork.
It's really amazing pairing, isn't it? Yeah, I can imagine those working beautifully together.
Yeah. And there's a book called Mother Russia out of Alterna. I didn't make a note of the guy who wrote it. And it's about a woman who's the sniper in the tower. Oh, this is a zombie book, so I shouldn't say it, but she's the sniper in the tower and she's killing all the zombies. And it's the Stalingrad thing, but it's as if it was a snow-covered zombie world. It's really well done. It's only 3 issues. Great read, really quick.
What was that, Mother Russia?
Yeah.
Okay. Some homework for me?
Yeah. Gypsy, which is by Thierry Smolderan and Enrico Marini, which is the world, this truckers in the post-apocalyptic. And they're supplying all the different outposts and stuff like that. It's Marini in a sort of it's a cross between bande dessinée and manga. It crosses over slightly there. It's quite hypersexual, very violent, but like pure action. Really, really good. It's there's a touch of the Mad Max about it as well, with the convoys and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
They're really good. Yeah. Then obviously the Marvel have done it, and I'd forgot. This only occurred to me this morning. Is Old Man Logan, which I kind of liked actually.
Yes.
Mark Miller.
Yeah. Because they spun it off quite successfully as well after that, didn't they? That was
and I rate that
well?
series. Yeah, Old Man Logan, when he comes back to the present, I rate that series. I think it's got a lot of heart about it.
Yeah, Sorrentino, wasn't it?
Yeah. What else have I got? Xenozoic Tales by Mark Schultz.
Yeah.
Great.
I had that.
Yeah.
Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, yeah.
Yeah, that sort of thing, yeah. Just a Pilgrim by Garth Ennis and Carlos Esquira, which is kind of a Western crossed with a post-apocalyptic thing.
Yes, it's very, very Western, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
And Sweet Tooth, well, I'll just say as my last one, from Jeff Lemire, out of Vertigo, I think it was. I've got to say it because it's Sarah Harris's favourite comic, and she'd kill me if I didn't. So, yeah.
That's one of my, everyone's got that list of guilty books that they haven't read, and I know that.
We all have, man.
Yeah, Sweet Tooth. Once you don't get around to, but that was one of the books that was just around when we were starting the first sort of comic collective, the SEC that we did.
Oh, okay.
So many people brought it to the meet and they were talking about it. It was, really did invoke such a lot of passion.
So peculiar. It's a cross between a post-apocalyptic and Fables or something like that. It's just bizarre, strange. But he does that so well, I think, Lemire, doesn't he? Especially because he draws it as well, which is makes it interesting. I think you mentioned this one, Mike. It was Why the Last Man. I think, didn't you mention that one?
Yes, I did.
Am I imagining that? Yeah. Interesting book. Not super interesting, and I think for a while it was considered one of the best Vertigo series. It seems to be a little bit forgotten now. You don't quite see it as much.
Yeah, I did read that one as well, and I don't know. I think I was expecting it to be a little bit different, but obviously I did read it all the way, through, which is, it's always a good sign. Yeah,
cool. And anything by Mags Versaggio makes me feel like I'm in the apocalypse. Feel free to cut that bit out if you like.
We don't do any editing here, so.
We don't either. No.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Mags. Sorry.
that requires technical expertise.
Yeah. The most I do, I'll write a time down. Maybe on the odd occasion that we have a coffin fit or something. I just thought of one.
Okay.
Grendel.
Yes, not all of it, but some of it. Yeah,
Grendel Prime. Was that?
I think you're right, man. Yeah.
Grendel Prime.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Like 88, 89, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, they shoot off into the future, don't they? And they have these crazy sort of like bikes, and it gets very futuristic. But yeah, they did a few team ups with him as well. I think they did a Grendel Prime sort of Batman.
Right, okay, yeah. I'm a huge Mage fan. I'm a big fan of his Mage stuff, and I love the Grendel stuff.
I haven't caught up that. I haven't caught up with the sort of finish of it, but that stuff was prime comic shop, material when we went on our trips at the weekend.
Yeah.
And it was great, and because a really good comic shop will have those, Mage, Love and Rockets and Cerebus and all those available, so that we weren't just buying, Teen Titans and X-Men and stuff. So we did end up buying that, and that stayed with me, I think, more than Kamiko was a great company,
Yeah. It did some Elementals, The Last Man.
Ginger Fox, was it the Panda Brothers? They did one called.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
something like that. I thought that was really crazy artwork. I remember thinking that was just fantastic.
And it's always nice to find it in back issue bins at Comic Marts because it's got that checkerboard top to it, isn't it? You can always spot it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Did they do Espers? Was that Comico, or was that somebody else?
I've got a feeling that was Eclipse.
Right. Yeah. Of course. I mean, Eclipse. Get onto Eclipse.
Oh man, I've been collecting some of their stuff recently.
What's the one that the Russo brothers are doing? The Tim Truman, Grimjack.
Love Grimjack.
Does that count as post-apocalypse?
No, but Scout does. Scout. Because Grimjack was kind of the place between realities, wasn't he? The bar between realities. Yeah, there's more sort of sci-fi, but Scout was definitely. I mean, I don't know why I didn't write Scout down. I love Scout, man. That's one of my favourite ever comics. I've even got that. I bought the issue twice. It's got the flexi disc in it just to. Yeah. He's got. I've backed the Kickstarter. He's only been working. It's good actually because I backed the Kickstarter and he's only been working on it for 2.5 years. So I paid him 50 quid 2.5 years ago. So I'm hoping one day we get the new Scout through.
I think you have to wait for the actual apocalypse before that.
I think we do, yeah.
Right,
until Texas becomes its own country or whatever happened in that book. Yeah. Mind you, that won't be long.
Yeah, well, I mean that's awesome post-apocalyptic library there as well. But you did mention Killraven. I thought he was going to.
I've saved that for my last 5.
Right. Oh, right. So that is
we're building up
your last 5.
Yeah. Yes. So my last 5 is number. Shall I do that? Do you want me to do it now? Okay. So number 5, Commandy. Like, brilliant.
Of course.
That scene with the Statue of Liberty and the mutants, and he's the last boy on Earth, and I remember just freaking the F out of me as a kid. Just brilliant. I had to cross out Judge Dredd because you had it before, so I put Old Man Logan in there at number 4. Number 3, I've got a combination of a number of different comics, but they're all the same character. So what do you think? Does that count?
You just actually froze for that bit. So.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Okay. So I got the. You're staring at me. I think. Well, oh no, I've done something wrong. I put the Planet of the Apes comics down.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I was going to say Planet of the Apes for one of my top 5.
Right.
But unfortunately, I was playing against Pete, who was supposed to be doing TV adaptations. So I didn't want to give it any points.
Yeah.
I've got Planet of the Apes. There's a raft of brilliant series for it. Gabriel Hardman, all these sort of people recently have drawn it, and just beautiful stories. Sorry, mate.
Chris Mooneyham, was it Mooneyham?
Oh, okay. Well done. Yeah, but also because there's another series which is so stupid that I really love it. It came out, I think, at AC Comics, called Ape Nation, which is one where imagine if the alien nation spaceship had crashed on Earth during the Planet of the Apes times, and they ever teamed up, and it's just nuts. But I kind of like it as a kid.
Amazing.
Number 2, the greatest comic ever made, Killraven, obviously. Just one of my favourite books ever. There's a subtitle on the podcast I did as a spin-off during the lockdown called "What Do You Mean You Haven't Read Killraven?" For a number of reasons it was groundbreaking. So it's kind of Spartacus in the future. It's set. It's after. So it's War of the Worlds essentially. So what if the aliens hadn't died in War of the Worlds? The Martians, they take over the Earth. They create fighting pits and things like that. But it's notable for a couple of other reasons. It's one of the best books of the Bronze Age. It's very poetic. It uses text. It uses full page spreads. It uses very sort of design heavy. Herb Trimp from Peacock, Craig Russell, even Chaikin did an issue. It's incredible. Giffen did an issue. But it also contains the first interracial kiss in comics, which is interesting, I think. Yeah, and McGregor, I met McGregor at Nice a couple of years ago, and he was an absolute gent. And it's lovely when you meet heroes, and they turn out to be nice people. And when you think he was doing that in Panther's Rage around the same time, you think the geezer was writing the best. They were the best days of his life writing. It's
some stuff to say,
incredible stuff. And then I swapped it out because I did have The Walking Dead until you told me off, and so I put Metalzoic in.
Yes,
which is the Kevin O'Neill book. Kevin O'Neill.
Lovely, yes.
Forgot about that. That was a good book, wasn't it?
Amazing. We need a big, nice reprint of that, don't we? We
almost need. I was going to say I haven't read that for years. Is there no reprint of it?
I don't think there is. I think
because otherwise it's individual issues. I'm going to have to dig out.
I've got a feeling was it in some collection like best of or something at one point. To be fair, the 2000 AD guys will know better than me, but it's incredible. It's just amazing.
Think it might have made it into Judge Dredd Monthly or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Or maybe the US version. I've definitely seen it But even then, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, we need an artist edition. It's Kevin O'Neill, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? He's a national treasure. And as it, Pat Mills was writing it, wasn't it? So both of them on their A game in that. And it's so strange. It's almost a continuation of Nemesis for me. There's almost Nemesis the Warlock-esque stroke with ABC Warriors, something like that. There's that going on in it.
There's always that feel in 2000 AD, isn't it? It's not necessarily established, but you do get this feeling of almost like layers of history in the stories that you can kind of piece together how it fits.
And they do play with you. So it's only, I think, was it a couple of years ago in Savage that the ABC Warriors were developed and appeared? So you realise that it goes Savage, ABC Warriors, Roadbusters, Nemesis. So there's...
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, isn't Finn related in some way to Slain? I think there's a
because there's the whole pagan connection.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so I like knowing that. I like it. It feels like home, doesn't it? That's the thing about it. Yeah.
How it fits. Well, there's a connection between Killraven and Planet of the Apes as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So Ape Slayer. So I mean, we're doing Killraven on a podcast soon. But Pete Dorry's become a pal of mine through the podcast, and he calls me Ape Slayer. That's what he calls me. That's for people that. Shall I explain it? You guys know.
Yeah. No, you go for it.
Okay. So I've talked about this before, but so basically Marvel UK, Planet of the Apes was incredibly popular at Marvel UK and was, because it was weekly, they were catching up on the American releases, so they needed something to put in the weekly. So somebody had the clever idea of just redrawing the faces in a Herb Trimpe Killraven and making them all apes. It's genius, really. Yeah, I think I said in the panel it's genius, and somebody laughed in the audience. But somebody at Marvel UK, whoever it was, I don't know who it was, had a brainstorm when that happened. And I've got the originals, and they're quite fun to have. You know, it's quite nice. It's quite a nice thing, and it surprisingly worked quite well. Yeah. I did remember as a kid thinking, this is a bit weird, isn't that Planet of the Apes? What's that monster come from?
It was close
enough.
It
added a little bit of... Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Totally. I remember that was probably one of the first... I think it was probably the gateway drug to Marvel to a certain extent. I absolutely loved Planet of the Apes. And the fact that you could get this comic, and then once you see the ads in that, and then you start moving beyond it.
Yeah. It was... and it all stands up still. It's all great. The movies are still great. The episodes of the TV series, forget the new crap. The comics are still great. You know, it's like some of those magazines, the covers on some of those magazines are beautiful. You know, like album covers, aren't they?
Yeah.
I've forgotten to check. Has it come out yet? The original script version.
I think it was out today, possibly. I think I got.
Oh, is it?
Dark Horse.
Oh wow, that was good timing.
Is that are you not thinking of the Alien original script?
Oh, maybe.
Oh yeah, the Alien original one's just come out now. Yeah.
I think I'm not sure if the Planet of the Apes one has. Who wrote it? Someone famous wrote it, isn't it? He wrote the original one. It's not Harlan Ellison or someone like that. Because Pierre Boulet wrote the novel, didn't he? And then
wrote the film. You mean? Right.
The novel, and then
really like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. We'll have to find out. Look at us uninformed.
Hardback. I got the Planet of the Apes hardback.
Oh, they're nice. Yeah, when Dark Horse released them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
So good.
I'm a sucker for any. Like, I've got the. I'm probably the only person that bought the Kong Skull Island.
I bought that last week. The one that came out, the Kong book, not the King Kong one. Oh, you mean okay.
The big art book, the big hardback.
Oh, okay, another one you mean, yeah. But Sutton's in that, isn't Sutton in that hardback you've got, the reprints?
Yeah, I think so. Tom Sutton.
Yeah. He does some great stuff, man. I love his stuff. Yeah. I was just looking at some of his Charlton comic stuff for the horror bit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Look at that logo as well, Charlton.
Yeah. Good.
Perfect. Cool.
Unbeatable that top 5, I reckon. There you go.
Yeah, totally. And
I can't get competitive because you don't. I feel bad.
That's absolutely perfect. I mean, because I think if people are intrigued or they haven't read any of these things, that's what you want. I mean, the fact that every time we start talking about something, there's always something I've not heard of, or reminds you to pick it back up again.
Bloody eBay's going to kill me. I think I must be on their hit list. The amount of things I've been ordering during lockdown. Yeah.
I suddenly got lockdown and late night lockdown purchases. I was on there the other day and I was suddenly found. I went down the Frank Robbins detective. Flipping minehole, flipping heck. And some of those are quite rare now, so they were quite pricey. But the is it Man Bat in Vegas?
Oh, right, I haven't read that one. Oh wow.
brilliant. I think he wrote quite a few, but he only wrote and drew about 6
Right, okay.
issues. And I think
Right.
I'm gradually, every true comic fan's got that list in there back in the wallet, and most of mine now is Frank Robbins books that aren't inked by Vince Coletta, and Kazar, old Kazar books.
Oh, I love Kazar. I bought some of the Barry Windsor Smith did a Kazar, didn't he?
Yeah, he did the first.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a Barry Smith then, wasn't he, before he did the Windsor?
Yeah, that's all that. Yeah, that petrified god sort of storyline. Gorgeous.
And Val Mayerick did some, and I love Val Mayerick so much. He's just amazing. Yeah.
And Big John, Big John Buscema. He did a couple of issues. Oh, perfect.
I bought a sketch of Val Mayerick's on eBay recently. I'm sure it's not by him, but in my head, I'm decided to insist that it is.
Sure.
I just noticed needed something by Val Mayerick. I know when I did Tony Esmond is a movie star, not based on me. The Cliff Cumber got compared to Val Mayerick, and it was the best day of his life.
Oh,
he was so happy.
Stunning. It looks fantastic. That book. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, that is a genre cocktail, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it touches on so many genres so
Flying
well.
Sharks at one point, and Spy. Yeah. And isn't that Mockingbird?
Almost, you've got that kind of
Mockingbird's first appearance, isn't it? When she was a secretary at.
Yes.
Yeah, he saves her, doesn't he?
They're kind of going out for a while, aren't they?
I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
Going around everywhere for a while. Yeah, she's just Bobby Moore's Shield agent, is she, or is she before she is? I
think you're right. I think that might be right. Yeah, because definitely Fury's in those few issues. Yeah. And that's basically Tarzan. He just does a Tarzan rip, doesn't he, on that? Yeah. Tarzan in New York or something. It's a bit like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I just can't get enough of those. Right. Horror.
Quick update. I looked up the Planet of the Apes one was already out. That's Planet of the Apes Visionaries. It was me mixing up which one was coming and which one was already out.
Oh, okay.
So it was the Aliens original script.
That's out today. I was speaking to Dave Kennedy
about
that.
No, that's the original. That's the Alien one. I think there was Aliens, and then there was it was the Alien 3 one that's been out already.
That's right. Yeah. So they've made a comic of the original Alien script before it was fannied about with. So the first movie, haven't they? I think that's out. What day is it today? Thursday. Came out yesterday. Yeah.
It was. Dark Horse emails yesterday was advertising the hell out of it. So sorry about that. Horror. Right.
So what is the best thing about horror as a genre? Is it the freedom to do all those things that we to see those things that we imagine doing?
It's a funny one, isn't it? Has anyone ever really been scared by a comic? I don't know. Apart from when I was a kid, whether I have, I don't know.
Thank you. Sorry, waitress service. I know. I think the scariest things are usually in comics. I remember there was a scene where one of the characters. The one thing I always think of is there's a scene in Love and Rockets where one of the characters self-immolates themselves, set themselves on fire, and it was somebody that you'd read a lot about and you'd got quite close to, I think, during the stories. And I do remember. Right. But it wasn't scared, but it was horrific. It was just like, oh my God, what a terrible thing to.
I've been grossed out, I think, by comics. So that's more common.
Yeah, and then comics has got this weird connection with violence as well, haven't they? Because I was talking with my daughter over lunch, and I just found an old toy. Crazy to think you could buy it, but do you remember Marv from Sin City?
Yeah.
They sold a toy of him in the electric chair.
That's right.
So you could electrocute him. Yeah, you can flick the
switch. For every kid, just what kids need.
Perfect. And his eyes flash, and his hands are supposed to jiggle. It doesn't really do a lot of moving. He actually bounces around whatever surface you put him on, so it actually looks more like a sort of jumping toy than anything. It's quite horrific. It's all in black and white. But my daughters remember playing with it when they were younger. They never had any idea of where it came from. So I was telling her about Sin City. And then, I said it's very tongue in cheek. It's very over the top. I said, it's very violent, but in a very sort of knowing arch way. And she said, well, is it more violent than The Boys? Because I'd mentioned that to them. And those two distinctions, I think, are, that graphic violence, how it's treated, how it's presented, and The Boys, and they're both presented in quite a knowing way somewhat, but they want different reactions from the audience.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's hard to get fear from a comic. I think it's because a lot of that requires the actual whole stimulus of everything. Like, you could just about get it from a film, but I don't think it's one of those things. It's more intrigue and suspense I get from a comic.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, if you deprive yourself of that stimulus, I have read books that are scary.
Yeah.
But comics seems to be in the middle of those two, and you either need the absence of realistic stimulus, or you need your own pure imagination, I think, to get frightened. But I think horror does well in comics still.
Yeah, I've been disquieted, I suppose, is the only way I could think of it. I've been slightly put on edge, maybe, by some comics. I know you mentioned From Hell last time, didn't you? But there's moments in where I was waiting for something at work, and there was no TV, there was nothing else, and I had From Hell in my bag, and I sat there and read almost the whole of From Hell, and it does have a certain effect on you. It does, we change our moods by the things we ingest, don't we? And I think that certainly had that effect on me. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the whole connection with the kind of history of murder that they and tying it geographically to London was what really, I think, cemented that book in my mind. There's this connection with this place and this idea that it could be not necessarily generated but encouraged. That's a scary thought. There's an influence, and this idea of this influence being generated was and passed is a very strange. You can almost catch it, I suppose. There's an element that it's there waiting for you. That's pretty nasty.
And there's a moment at the end where he sort of time shifts, doesn't he? And is he in an office? I can't remember now. And he's looking around at people, and I remember thinking, my favourite book of Moore's. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I think it's my favourite thing he's done. I'm a big Swamp Thing fan as well. I think stuff like the Anatomy Lesson and did certainly have an effect on me. It didn't frighten me, but I did think, wow, that is totally.
I think that connection again. He connected horror with a place in those first few issues, the American Gothic, where he connected horror with attitudes, or with generally with attitudes, because you've got the kind of American Indian. I remember the sort of blood rights connection with menstruation, and then you've got racism being explored, and you've got real life horror generated by people misunderstanding and not getting things right. Yeah, that definitely stayed with it. And anybody who can make Pogo as scary as he did is flipping. It's outrageous. Those definitely. There's something in there that there's an element of Silverbeard, one of the ages that I want to be sort of quite horror based, and the touchstone for that period that I can't quite leave is the feeling that I remember getting from reading those Swamp Thing stories. And you're right, I don't know if it's fear, but even if you can get disquiet or something that just stays with you and
tension, even there's a certain tension when you're reading it.
And tension that stays with you. The fact that you've not forgotten the connections between, first of all, an unexpected thing that happened in a comic. You pick up a Swamp Thing comic, and the first time it takes that turn, and it is something that actually takes you down a path that you end up thinking about things differently after reading that book. It's crazy, and it's definitely stuff that stayed with me much longer than so many other books I've read.
There's a sense of Swamp Thing around that period, and as well as Hellblazer when it started, of the communicable madness, like disease and madness and terror and violent acts were, somehow could be passed on. There was everything was sort of on the decline, and we were looking around at each other, and they were all strange and slightly out of place and stuff. And I put them at the same level for me. The early Hellblazers especially.
Totally.
It became a bit more as much as I love Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon's. It's a little bit more soap opera-y when that happened, but it's all good, but it's just different,
Yeah, definitely. No,
and the other one of that period I would put is a similar one, is Batman Arkham Asylum. I think that's certainly written as a horror. It's a horror comic.
Totally.
No, that's a solid choice. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mad Hatter is a child abuser. There's no two ways about it. He's displayed for that reason. And the way the Joker is he's the most frightening I think I've ever seen him in a comic.
Proper demented. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Even his speech is red blood and stuff like this. Very clever. I'm not sure it's the best Batman comic, but I think it's a good horror comic. Yeah.
Totally. And again, it's just one of those that you just stays with you. My younger daughter, she came down and she was like, "Oh, what should I read next?" And it was a very proud moment for a dad. Her choices were Watchmen, Killing Joke, or Arkham Asylum.
Oh right, okay,
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
She had tried to read Watchmen previously, but I think she was just a bit too young. But I said, well, they're all quite standalone, really. But you're absolutely probably spot on the age for reading Arkham Asylum and Killing Joke. And I remember definitely, just that Dave McKean art just fits so perfectly with that whole, vision of these characters that, quite frankly, I mean, it is one of those amazing things about comics that they can be portrayed one way on the 60s TV show.
Yeah.
And then they can be portrayed in, 20 years later in such, horrific.
And it was originally going to be Bolland, wasn't it? Arkham Asylum.
Right, was it?
Yeah, I can't remember what happened now. I looked it up recently and it turned out.
Did that come out after Killing Joke, Arkham Asylum?
I'm going to say yes. I think it did. Yeah.
Similar-ish time,
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, top choices.
Yeah. That's not my top five. You're doing the top five, are you, Mike?
Is he frozen?
Oh, no, I'm back in.
It's just
no. The top five from previous I've read out already.
Right. Okay.
We were taking purely your top five for this.
We're just
right. Okay.
Because we're not deciding. Yeah, because we're not deciding. We're just doing the discussion of both of them.
Right.
So that the listener then can go online and after our incredibly incisive points that we've made about the genre, they'll leave this podcast absolutely sure there's no other genre that can win this than either horror or post.
I get you. Okay, I see. Yeah, I get you.
So you're kind of like representing both of them really in a sense, and
yeah.
It's the fact that people have listened to us banging on about our own opinions about these for way too long, so that we need a pundit who's going to bring.
It's not like I'm on a podcast much. Do you know what I mean? That's it. People must be well bored of me by now. But a couple of worthy mentions then from me, if you don't mind. So,
absolutely.
Prison Planet by Johnny Ryan. Have you read that?
Yes, lovely.
That's the most nutty. When he crawls out the end of the man's person. It's just honestly the most satisfying. It's 6 books. I saved the 6th book for holiday earlier this year, and there's a perfect ending to it. It's crazy good. Triple X Zombies, which is the zombies in zombies again. Not allowed to say zombies, are we?
Oh,
yeah, but it's zombies in
Don't worry.
Zombies in the porn industry. That's quite a good one. I can't remember who wrote that one.
I think I mentioned it briefly, but didn't go into it on the zombie episode. I did a massive long list at the end because there was too many to talk about. Yeah. I'm sure I'll put that one in.
Yeah. Lord Horror by David Britton. Did anyone read that? It came out
no.
mid-80s. It was one of those comics that kept getting seized from comic shops. And around that time, around the Video Nasty time, there was that little period where some comics were getting seized. And it's crazy. It's Nazis, torture porn, underground, transgressive, you name it, he does it in it. It's kind of like a gothic version of Mike Diana. It's just nuts. Faust by Tim Vigil and David Quinn, which is a sort of revenge superhero-ish kind of demon with knives, where he gets nakedly crucified at one point. Another one that got seized, just crazy. Fiends of the Eastern Front, Jerry Finley Day, Carlos Esquira.
Yes, I know that one. Yeah.
Vampires in, is it the Second World War, Mike? I can never remember.
I'm trying to remember whether it was first or second. It was those trenches, so I'm thinking first.
Yeah, could well have been, yeah. So vampires, were they Romanian soldiers or Transylvanian soldiers or something like that? Yeah. Then you've got, I'd feel bad if I didn't mention all those fun horror comics out of Marvel, like Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, Man Thing, The Scarecrow, Ghost Rider, even Frankencastle, I suppose, is a horror comic. Legion of Monsters, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those magazines, the sort of, particularly the black and white magazines that they would put out, the Tomb of Dracula,
Zombie,
there was something about the fact that they were black and white with those kind of like washes on them that just really suited
people like Alfredo Alcala and all these sort of people. Yeah, really great eyes. Yeah.
In fact, I didn't realise Frank Robbins did it.
I think you're right.
Steve Ditko did a strip in one of those that I didn't know about as well.
Okay.
I don't know if it was it was a kind of vampire character. I'd never heard of it. I was just looking through.
Oh, look that up.
Comixology. Okay. Yeah. It's definitely in one of the Tomb of Dracula books, but just one of those real surprises that you kind of think you've known, in a limited bibliography of what everyone's done. But yeah, I'm a sucker for those.
And I think they were kind of my first exposure to horror comics, stuff like Tomb of Dracula, because I was reading them in the black and white weekly comics over here. But my second experience was probably stuff like House of Secrets, House of Mystery, Weird War Tales, Weird Western Tales, Witches, those sort of, like, I bought a couple of the showcases. DC did their version of the Essentials, and it's like having the Twilight Zone in a black and white comic. It's just loads of little twisty turny stories like you used to get from Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that, and creepy and eerie, but in a sort of slightly toned down DC Marvel kind of way. I like that stuff, man. It's clever,
And there's some good. I mean, there's a bit of Alex Toth in some of those as well.
Yeah,
isn't
there is. Yeah, he does the witches, doesn't he? He's quite famous for doing the three witches and stuff. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah,
they are just brilliant. Stunning. Yeah.
The Monster of Frankenstein by Marvel is a great book. It really is. And you think you got Doug Mensch, Gary Friedrich, Val Merrick, Bob Brown, all these great people involved. In that. I think it was only 20 issues or something like that. It's a short run, but really, really good.
Yeah.
Then Scream, I suppose. Scream comic over here. Stuff like The 13th Floor. Stuff like that. Vince Hunt, my pal, he's mad for that comic. Absolutely loves it. And you got Misty as well. Yeah. I never read any of Misty until it got reprinted. And there's some good stuff in there.
No, I didn't either. Yeah.
I used to read anything, like even my sisters, Jackie and Blue Jeans, because even them back in the day used to have a couple of strips in there.
Yeah.
So I do remember, I think one of my cousins used to get like Misty, and my wife, one of the connective tissues with her was the fact that I think her sister used to get Misty and she used to get Judy or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So I can see a Lakes podcast, Fumetti, at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Like a photo story.
Yeah. I think that'd be good. Of me and Mike. In our shared living room.
Yeah. Chinese today, Mike? What about
and then it cuts to Tony in the supermarket with shaky cane next to him.
Mate, leave me alone.
Definitely writes itself.
It does. That's a big seller. There we go. Copyright us.
You saying about Misty has just reminded me, actually. When I was a kid, there was a comic story that did truly frighten me, and this is going to be embarrassing to admit. Looking.
Oh, right.
Do you remember Looking?
Yeah.
They did Sapphire and Steel as a comic strip. I have no recollection of the story or anything, but I remember that it absolutely terrified me to the point where I threw the comic away. I'm pretty sure the TV series did. I was way too young for it. But it was all, floating pillows, suffocating babies and stuff. It was a very strange series for that time of night for kids. But yeah, right. I do remember that.
You can buy some of that looking art quite cheaply, if you find the right thing, you can find like a Benny Hill or On the Buses strip, on eBay quite easily. But I remember I watched that. I tried to rewatch Sapphire and Steel, and I think the first series was just sort of set in someone's front room or something, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah,
standing around, wasn't there?
A lot of them were like that.
Yeah.
Funny, that does remind me of. I did have a comic that I had to skip a page on, and I had one of the Marvel Treasury books. It was Marvel Team Up, and it was the one where the Spider-Man cover, I think it's Ernie Chan, they did a homage to the Band on the Run Wings cover.
I know.
Against the Wall, do you remember?
Yes, I do know. Yeah.
So it's X-Men, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, and I think Iron Fist was in the book as well. So I reprinted 3 Marvel team-up stories, big oversized book. But the Ghost Rider one was the first appearance of the Orb.
Ah, yeah.
He had his origin story. So he was, he worked with Johnny Blaze's dad, and he's trying to set up Johnny Blaze's dad or something. But at some point, he has an accident, and the guy who becomes the Orb travels something like, and they have it in big caps in the caption. And then there was a crash, and he travelled 20 yards down the track on his face. And there's a bit in the story later on where the Orb, whose costume is basically bike leathers with just a big eyeball on his head, he takes off the cover, and there's the most brilliant, gnarled, absolutely horrific sort of, I mean, nowadays it looks like a zombie. But it used to freak me out so much as a kid. I'd read the story, but I'd always skip the double-page spread that come after it because that page was just horrific.
That I remember that similar. That brought back memories of me as a kid being freaked out by the comic adaptation of Beneath the Planet of the Apes when they take their faces off and they've all got that zombie thing, and I'm like, oh my god, that's really frightening.
yeah, totally, that mutant, because they were quite veiny, weren't they? Also,
yeah. A couple of other ones I just mentioned is Surface Tension by my pal Jason Gunn, which is an eco horror. Really clever. There's a touch of the Wicker Man. There's a touch of the Prisoner. It's set in the United Kingdom. It's very clever. Really good stuff. What else have I got? Harrow County. That's good.
Oh yeah. Tyler Crook. Yeah. It's brilliant.
And Helheim by Colin Bunn and Joel Jones. About a zombie. I suppose it's a zombie, but it's like a Viking warrior. And then they did a sequel called The Brides of Helheim, which is pretty good as well.
Yeah, Six Gun's got a slight horror sort
of vibe
to it as well, hasn't it? Yeah, love Six Gun. Yeah.
Well, you think Doctor Strange kind of does, doesn't it? There's a lot out there that sort of, even then you could extend that to the Defenders used to have quite a lot of horror elements. And
there was a few storylines, where
the six-fingered hand of the devil, or that story like really freaked me out or something. Steve
Gerber was quite prone to a lot of that, wasn't he? He liked that.
He was writing Man-Thing at the time, wasn't he? I think a lot of it really freaky stuff.
Probably.
Yeah.
The opposite of that time was it Steve Gerber, Jim Starlin. Apparently they were all dropping acid, weren't they?
I think it's in the Marvel The Untold Story. Doesn't Jim Starlin and a couple of them go for a walk and just get off their nuts? Yeah. And then that turned into the first few issues of Master of Kung Fu or something.
Yeah. Adam Warlock. Yeah, probably something like that. Brilliant.
And 30 Days a Night was the other one I was going to mention.
Oh, Steve Niles.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. And Moonshine.
It's another one. One. I must read that. I read the first issue, really liked it. I need to get back on it. Yeah.
It's really, I think it's been on, it was kind of slightly off and on in terms of coming out, but I think they've hit about 18 issues, something now. But I mean, I'll read anything that Risso draws.
Yeah.
But it's got that real Southern Gothic sort of.
Yeah. He does that so well, doesn't him and Leandro Fernandez? They do it. They both of them are just so class around that, aren't they? Yeah. Really nasty faces and
Yeah. Perfect.
Good. There you go.
After that thorough examination of post-apocalyptic comics and horror, if you had to choose one genre,
do you want me to choose one? Post-apocalyptic. I'm going to go post-apocalyptic. Only because I know Mike's like making a face, so he's trying to make me say it.
Totally. Oh, we know Mike. Before this program even started, we know which Mike was going to go for.
I don't know. My memory of looking has now started to sway me slightly.
I'm finding that
but it's going to have to be Post-Apocalypse for me as well.
I don't know. I don't think I've read as many as you two, I have to say. But the fact that I have a driving urge to do horror stories more than post-apocalyptic stories is probably, not that it makes any difference to the proceedings, but I'd probably go horror myself.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think, you know...
There's a thin line, isn't there, between the two, I think. Let's be honest. Yeah.
I think there's very much something about post-apocalyptic stories, as we were talking about. I mean, the fact that we're talking about Kazar, that could quite easily be a post-apocalyptic story. Yeah. Connection between Kazar and Kamandi, and so many of these other stories. You take somebody out and you put them, you know, in this wild frontier, is totally
something like Tor as well. You know, like it's so far back and so full of mutants and monsters and stuff. It could be exactly the same time in the future, couldn't it? You know. Yeah.
What am I talking about? It's got to be a post-apocalyptic. Yeah. I mean, totally. Because it's monsters, it's madness, it's just brute force fighting to survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's post-apocalyptic all the way.
Yeah. I thought you. I know you're more of a sort of Twilight fan, so I thought you might go for the horror.
Yeah, totally. That's my bag. That is the most thorough examination, which I thought we would get so far.
Oh, great.
So we'll leave it up to the listeners, mindless ones. We'll have to I think Ian'd be all right for putting the tweet up, but we don't actually know when this episode's going to go out yet.
Okay.
But trust us, it will be out there. So when you do hear it, go look for the poll that will be up for 2 weeks.
Okay.
To make it fair for the same one.
Yeah.
So you can vote yourself for horror and post-apocalypse, which will be fighting against crime.
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you think Spider-Man's almost a crime comic, isn't it? Yeah.
Daredevil, yeah. I mean,
and again, on the poll underneath, if you've got something you don't think we've mentioned or something you want to recommend to everyone, that's what all of this is about, is just hopefully inspiring people to look up something or pick up a comic of that genre. Just stick your suggestion underneath the tweet.
And then come back and then join us for Group C, which is going to be sci-fi versus fantasy.
Oh.
How did it fall? How did the chips fall like that? I mean, it's just... that's going to be impossible.
I'm going to put my money on fantasy for that one, because that whole sort of Dungeons and Dragons has sort of reappeared, isn't it? You know, people I used to take the mick out of for being into Dungeons and Dragons. It's apparently quite cool now.
Yeah, totally. Brilliant. Well, awesome. Tony, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure, guys. Yeah, really loved that. Yeah, really good.
I mean, at one point you were part of the Genre World Cup drinking game, because you did get so many mentions. So the mention of Tony, we had to drink.
Right. Oh, good. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely
and
perfect.
Although you do keep trolling me over Steven Seagal, so I'll forgive you for that.
Brilliant. Right. So, Tony, where can people catch up with you, buy your stuff, and follow you on social media?
Thank you, guys. Awesome Comics podcast. Come on there for your not safe for work fun. No, it's perfectly clean. No, it's not. Or if you go to, which we have a laugh every week. It's out every Monday. And if you go to tributepress.bigcartel.com, you can buy Atomic Hercules, my post-apocalyptic series with Adam Falp, or Tony Esmond is a movie star, and the WHORE Chronicles. There you go.
Definitely. Actually, that's something. There's a definite horror vibe in some of your pro stories in the Horror Chronicles, isn't there?
Yeah, they're all taken from real people, so I suppose that's kind of true crime thing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a chill that comes through those stories, brilliantly written. So yeah, definitely.
That's very kind of you, man. Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, Tony, that was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's good fun, man.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure if we were wrapping up with where to find us. I'm on Twitter @CthulhuPunk.
And I am This Man, This Pete, pretty much everywhere. See you next episode. Cheers.
Fine.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.